interest in today's hearing for sure, especially with the whole debate on whether or not Sean Diddy Combs could actually go home.
Hey, yo, C-Gutter, stop filming me, man, all the time.
Oh yeah, we're back with another episode of The Twisted Tea, where we come to bring you the news with a twist. And today, we have Diddy back in court.
So when he came inside, it was still in that khaki jumpsuit. He, again, looks kind of grayish, a little bit like that, a little thin.
Oh yeah, for the third time, he's going for his bail hearing. And this time, well...
Subramanian. This is the first time this judge has heard this issue after Sean Combs has been denied bail on two separate occasions. And it seems, based on the arguments put forward by the defense and also put by the prosecution, that he may be open to bail for Sean Combs. Now, clearly,
as Diddy went in front of the judges and his lawyers.
But as soon as he came inside that courtroom today, he beamed up immediately, looking straight at his family, and that was pretty much the only people he kept eye contact with.
Since September's arrest, he has been there awaiting his trial, which will come up on May 5th. Now, things did just get really spicy. You see,
court where the prosecutor has now jumped in and said, consider witness one a participant in multiple freak-offs.
His lawyer team went out their way to state that the Cassie video that we all saw had been edited by the prosecutors to make it look worse than what it seems. Oh yeah, you heard me. Diddy's lawyers said that the tape has been edited. That's right, the tape that we saw on CNN with the vicious Cassie beating has been edited.
This video that CNN somehow got, we don't know if this is the version that was submitted to the judge.
What Diddy is saying in these documents, this version that we're looking at right now that we've all seen, that is not what was submitted to the judge. What they are alleging is that the version that prosecutors submitted to the judge put things in a different sequence. Now, they don't say in the documents what sequence or how it changed.
Now, I will go out there and say that no matter how the tape looks, it all looks bad regardless. But to know that they may have edited and or did things to alter the tape and then give it to the judge, well, that there is a little bit mind-blowing.
Diddy did not drag her down the hallway, just a portion of the hallway, and say that she was able to leave. As for him throwing flower vase at her, they say if you look at the video, he actually only threw the content of the vase. He did not actually throw the vase.
Stay with me now. And honestly,
if you're Diddy's attorneys and you are trying to make this argument, their point is the government has presented this as if it was a coerced situation, a freak-off, and they're saying this was not at all a freak-off. This was a domestic dispute. They were in the hotel room. The way they painted the picture is that she saw his phone, he was communicating with some other woman, they got into an argument about it, and she runs out and with his clothing, and he goes after her just to get his clothing.
If the judge finds that the feds did, in fact, send out a different copy of the tape, I do feel as though the judge will be looking at the prosecution in a very different light.
There is this maxim in the law called judicial notice, that sometimes judges are allowed to take notice of things that are out in the public, even if it's not necessarily presented right in the courtroom. So it means that you don't necessarily only have to look at the evidence presented in court.
And the judge certainly has seen.
The judge has certainly seen that video. Even and if anything, the judge can look at that video and say, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what I had seen when I watched it on TV or online.
And questioning everything else they do after that. Now, I don't know if the tape is or isn't changed, but I can say that if it is found that it has been, well, you can rest assured that this case will be very messy. And that will be a huge win for Sean Puffy Combs.
I keep going back to that release of that Cassie tape. I think the tape was released because they knew that she was going to be somewhat blamed for the behavior that happened. That they would know that she would participate in these different things with different individuals, and they wanted to make sure that was cut off at the pass and essentially make her a victim and not a co-defendant. And I think that's why that tape was eventually leaked by whatever party that leaked that tape. A lot of not going back to that. No one's really discussed how that tape has come out, and I think it's an interesting thing, and especially when you have a judge that's interested in your story.
There's been a new judge that has been introduced to Diddy's case.
We had a district court judge or a magistrate judge, then a district court judge, now Judge Arun Subramanian. Why do you see a reassignment of a case like this? Why is it now in the hands of Judge Arun Subramanian?
The change in judges may actually be what the doctor ordered.
Well, on federal cases, we always appear to begin with in front of a magistrate that's associated with the judge, and then generally you then go to the judge that's going to have your case.
You see, with everything that's been going on, Sean Puffy Combs has been denied bail twice already. And he went out his way to give a pretty compelling package in order to receive bail. He was putting up his mansion for $50 million as bond and collateral. He was also going to hire a security team to monitor and keep up with everything as he stays in his house for 24-hour surveillance with, pretty much no calls, just like jail.
Big theme was whether or not he should be allowed out, considering Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, who was also charged with sex trafficking and arrested recently, he was let out on a $10 million bail package.
The Abercrombie and Fitch former CEO, Jeffrey Michaels.
The former CEO of clothing retailer Abercrombie and Fitch has been arrested on federal sex trafficking and interstate prostitution charges.
Just arrested also on SA charges in New York, not far from where Diddy is. Pretty much one is in the southern county and one is on the eastern side.
I feel confident to say this feels like a very fair, well-reasoned judge. The way he was pressing the prosecution, the way he's been pressing the defense, it's really something to take note of. And that's kind of the judge, that's exactly the kind of judge you want in these cases.
Mike Jeffries, his partner and a third associate, are accused of recruiting young men under the guise of modeling opportunities and coercing them to perform sex acts.
Sean Combs is proposing a $50 million bail package, private 24/7 security. At least 3 security guard members would be watching him. No internet use, no phone use, limited to his conversations with his attorneys, only a limited amount of visitors.
And well, Jeffries has already been released on bail. He offered a $10 million package around the clock security, which was accepted, as they are both going down for some of the same stuff.
You're not supposed to have different rulings for like-minded cases. Disparity in treatment is always frowned upon in the federal courts. And here they have a significant public interest case where bail was set at $10 million by agreement. It wasn't debated over. The government agreed to it. Now we come over to Sean Puffy Combs' case, and they're objecting to 5 times that amount.
They stated that the Abercrombie and Fitch CEO, former CEO, well, he had male models being traveled from place to place and was essaying them with violent and heinous acts as well. Very similar to the Diddy charges.
We also heard about other extraordinary events, including in Marrakesh, which I was told up to 60 men were flown in to entertain Jeffries and his friends.
I was made to believe, look, this is where everybody gets their start. This is where you want to get your start. It was like he was selling fame, and the price was compliance.
The allegations of the sex trafficking, in my opinion, are worse for the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. And it's just, it's funny that it just by happenstance, these cases happen together. If it didn't happen together, you'd have nothing to compare it to. You'd have to go back to a different sex trafficking case that someone didn't get bond. So it just so happened that this worked out for Sean Combs, where the Eastern District comes to an agreement on the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, and it works in his favor.
To Diddy's prosecution, he said, I want you all to pretty much be able to tell me why and what is so different in these cases.
He also said that he wants letters from both sides on Monday about what Sean Combs is allowed to communicate and what he is not allowed to communicate with. Because the big issue was, is he allowed to present social media posts about his family, his life?
Now, we won't know on November 22nd when Diddy does go to court, because the judge is going to take a few days to actually make the decision, especially with everything else that's been presented.
A lot of back and forth here. It's about whether or not his communications are a form of obstruction. It's about whether or not him even initiating a social media campaign would be to improperly influence a jury. No.
The prosecution is stating that Diddy has went out his way to continue an obstruction to justice and the investigation at hand, as he does not care, and he is clearly, this is all alleged, contacting witnesses, using other people's phones while inside of the detention center.
So the rules that he broke are broken on a daily basis. Like it's so idiotic when they just overshoot every time and say like, oh, you know, it's three-way calling. At times they'll use other people's pins for different reasons. Like even when they call me from a different pin, it's because they feel like the government's still spying on a discussion between them and their lawyer, and they could be right. You know, it's not like they're wrong.
Now, one of the other big things in this case that the prosecution has gone on to state, Diddy has been using his family and his social media in order to try to change the narrative of this case.
Was he orchestrating a social media campaign using his family to post things online that might potentially influence a jury? So keeping that in mind, Ms. Shapiro, again, Sean Combs' lawyer, says this is covered by the First Amendment. Messages they point to are not instructions to lie. There is a barrage of negative media coverage. He has a right to respond to that.
The narrative that the DA has already put out there, which we've been watching over the last year, in a sense, almost now. You see, since that video came out with CNN, we, in the majority of people's eyes, I'd say 99%, have found him to be guilty.
I think that it's not a bad thing when a PR company or even when a defendant takes it on himself to talk about good things that he's done in the past and the charitable things that they've done in the past. When you have a case like this where they are just every day there's something that is coming out, something that is leaked by either government or a party that's involved or someone that's interested in the case, where it is affecting, that could have affected a jury.
The defense is a little bit upset because they go, he's showing his family side and making people feel somewhat compassionate for him. It may help him out, in which they don't want that, because they've done a very good job over the last 9 months at least controlling the narrative of what has already been put out there about Sean Puffy Combs. Now, the feds also go out and state that they have recordings of such evidence using other people's phones inside the jail, taking advantage of their privileges, making three-way calls, and using family members to pretty much do the bidding for him. And there is one particular conversation that's taken place between Diddy and his sons where, well, it was placed in the indictment and also redacted from the indictment, which means taken out. So we may never know what was said in that conversation and or how it can or cannot be taken in context.
Well, the fact that they're debating it is healthy for him. It sounds like our judge here is trying to give a real fair analysis of all this. And this is a collision between First Amendment rights, as far as I'm concerned, and some of the requirements under bail, if there should be bail.
Now, the prosecutors are also stating that Diddy has spoken to witnesses.
What?
And with that, if he is speaking to witnesses, then yes, there's a problem. But there's also a gray area here because he has a lot of civil cases going on. It has came out that his attorneys have also spoken to several of these witnesses.
Some of these recordings show that he's telling people, just tell the truth, talk with my lawyer, and then the judge says, victim 3, you're saying the communications are fine? And Shapiro says, yes, same on witness 1 and witness 2. The judge says, what about the communications that are missing? Agnifilo, this is Mark Agnifilo, this is Sean Combs' other lawyer, says, witness 1 reached out to Mr. Combs' counsel and asked us for a lawyer. We didn't do anything along those lines because it was an odd request. I don't know the factual answer. The judge responded, how did you not know? And Sean Combs' other lawyer, Kenny Garrigo, says, there was a message from Mr. Combs to witness 1. I'll like to give it to you under seal. Prosecutor Foster may know it does not give rise to the level of obstruction. I do not have the actual message.
Or other people dealing with him in these civil cases, which then makes it acceptable. I just wanted to bring you an update. You tell me what you think in the comments. You let me know in the comments what you think you want to see happen to Sean Puffy Combs as this trial continues. We'll keep you with updates. Thank you for watching another episode of The Twisted Tea, where we come to bring you the news with a twist.
They're right to make this argument. It's precedent. It's precedent within that jurisdiction. And I think the judge is going to look hard at it. You've now got 2 rulings that have gone against him, so he's got to look at those rulings and those judges. But he's also got a situation where the government has agreed to bail in a situation that's, if it's not as bad, it's pretty darn close by accusation. I wonder if the government didn't do themselves a disservice by this untimely search of the cell.
Yeah.
Where they shook his cell down, they allegedly looked at privileged materials. That's a no-no. And I don't think this judge was all too pleased with it.
They're married and they want to call their girlfriend. So they use one of the other guy's PIN numbers. It's so commonly done that I don't even consider it a flagrant violation of the rules. I don't even know if they give shots that unless they can really tie it up with that he's doing it to contact these witnesses and threatening witnesses. If the judge has real life experience, which I'm sure this judge does, he's going to look at that as a very minor violation of the jail rules. And I don't think that shows that he's going to flagrantly do things if he's let out.